Roger Stone, and you're here on the Stone Cold Truth on the Genesis Communications Network. I'm joined by my co-host, Tyler Nixon, and it's been quite a week for President Trump. Well, James Comey, not so much. But I want to bring your attention to a story that ran at both of a publication called the Raw Story and also a publication called the Pehme Report. Now, these two things are the epitome of fake news. Their headline, a political consulting firm based in Maryland, raided by the FBI, is tied to Roger Stone and Paul Manafort. That's very interesting because I've never heard of this political consulting firm, something called the Strategic Campaign Group. And I have no tie whatsoever to them. I think they make this bogus case over a fellow named Dennis Whitfield, who was a friend of Charles Black, one of my partners, several years ago. They then try to say that this raid is related to Russia. I mean, these are the biggest lies, the biggest fake news I've seen since California Congressman Eric Swalwell went on CNN last week and said that I knew about the hacking of John Podesta's emails in advance, that canard, that falsehood. So if you see this story, you will know immediately it is fake news. Tyler, welcome to the Stone Cold Truth.
It's good to be with you, Roger. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you pretty well. Now, as most people I think know, the Netflix documentary, Get Me Roger Stone, opened yesterday worldwide, and the reviews have been phenomenal. New York Times, LA Times, Entertainment Weekly. The only sour review of the film, which is extremely well made, and I must say, now that I've seen it, it's not a love letter, nor is it a hit piece. It's a pretty balanced view of, the life and times of Roger Stone and my political philosophy, my rules, and so on. Roger Ebert didn't like it. He attacked, my clothing, the shape of my head, my hair, a lot of truly important stuff. So I would say this, Ebert's consistent. No judgment and no talent. And I guess you have to have one in the crowd, right, Tyler?
So Roger Ebert, I thought he was dead.
Oh, perhaps it was the other character.
Rex Reed?
No, Rex Reed, let me pull up the interview while we're looking.
Sure. Yeah, this has made quite a splash. I mean, I confess I have not seen it yet, so I'm kind of waiting till I get some time this evening, I think, to check it out. And but quite a bit of fanfare, quite a number of interviews done, actually, on major networks, and you've been sort of burning up the airwaves, certainly, this week. And I think people will get to know the influence that you have, and it's sort of, as a friend of yours, Roger, you're an enduring figure in this political age, and particularly in this administration. So, President Trump, it's impossible to see what he's doing and not see your influence, whether it's direct or not. And of course, people disputed whether you had been in touch with the president recently and so forth. I think as long as you've known President Trump, there's a lot of symbiosis there. Whether you directly communicate with him, I think you guys are on the same channel, so to speak. And it shows because he's such a hard-hitting. It's just I'm really every day just taken aback at how President Trump, he just does not care what the media thinks of him, and he hits back. This is really, it's almost like a dream come true for people who are sick of, number one, the media influence and control over politicians, and number two, the politicians who capitulate to it and constantly suck up to the media and give them whatever they want. I think the Bush family being a perfect example of this. They never hit back on the media. The media destroyed the younger Bush for years. They constantly lampooned the elder Bush, and these guys never did anything. Never did a thing to push back. They always wanted to play the above the fray family, those who sort of the patrician, I guess, the New England patrician types, or if not the kind of cold Texas quiet man type of mentality. But honestly, Trump is doing the world a favor, and it's amazing because as he stands there rock solid and continues to roll forward and do what he needs to do to adjust his administration, to make the changes that need to be made, and to proceed. I mean, you look at how much has gone on just in the last few months since he's been in office. You think, gosh, there's at least 3.5 more years, if not 7.5 more years to go. I'll tell you, the media is going to be a puddle on the floor, melted down truly to oblivion, frankly, by the time it's all done.
Well,
the mainstream media, of course.
From your mouth to God's ears, let's clarify this question about who advised who on the firing of Comey. CNN and Politico both reported, as did the New York Times, that I recommended to the president the firing of Comey in a phone call. You'll notice that I am not quoted in any of those stories, nor am I the source of those stories. The president then subsequently said he had not spoken to me in recent days about this question. And when I was asked, I said, it has been my position through the campaign and since he's become president not to address questions about the scope or content or frequency of our conversations. That said, telephone is not the only way to communicate. I'm a memo writer. The president certainly aware of my views on Mr. Comey for months, never mind weeks. And I think the president did the right thing. This guy was becoming a little J. Edgar Hoover. He was starting to pursue his agenda, not the country's agenda. He clearly has decided that the mass multi-million-dollar theft that ran through the Clinton Foundation is not a crime, yet he continues to waste the taxpayers' money looking for a Russian connection on Donald Trump that literally does not exist. So one has to wonder what took so long. Had I been President Trump, in all honesty, I would have fired him the second he took his hand off the Bible.
The whole issue is completely concocted, contrived. It really, it's yet another master stroke by Trump. And as he had mentioned in one of the interviews, there's never going to be a good time to fire the FBI director, particularly this one, who's put himself sort of in the middle of political warfare and quite willingly. And I think he relishes it, it seems to me. I watched his testimony, Comey's, on May 3rd, and I was appalled, frankly. I felt like this man needs to go. In fact, I think I said it on the last week's show. I just said, what a piece of work this guy is. And sure enough, I obviously was not alone in that sentiment. I thought his testimony was way political, way too political for any administrative head, particularly a law enforcement one. He seemed to just like to wax on and on, and the way he answered questions, it was very, in my opinion, what's the word I'm looking for? It was clever, but too clever by half, I guess, in that he seemed to want to answer. If he didn't want to answer a question that didn't suit whatever his agenda is, it would be, I'm not going to answer that, Senator, as though it's his personal whim to answer what he, is asked or what he wants to in those proceedings, rather than to simply say, keep a consistent line, look, we don't discuss this. I mean, you could tell he was cherry picking what he wanted to testify to, and it seemed to be always, to leave the question open as to whether there was evidence, for example, of the Russian collusion and all this nonsense, rather than just say, look, we're not going to discuss that, and that's it. It's an internal whatever we're investigating, and that's the end of it. I'm not going to discuss it. But no, he had to dabble in his little forays into these political intrigues, and now he's paid the ultimate price for it in terms of his career, as he should have. He should have been gone long ago, and the Democrats are absolute disgusting hypocrites, as always, with the way they've reacted to this. It just goes to show you they will pick anything, any side of any issue. So, well, Roger, as I understand, you're not feeling well. So, are you going to make it back in for the rest of the show? Or
Michael Caputo is on the line, and he is going to step in for me for a bit. I will join you later. Also joining us are Dylan Bank.
Hi, this is Bernie Sanders, and believe me, I know you may not believe me, but you gotta believe me. In my opinion, I like the Stone Cold Truth, and I listen to it.
the Stone Cold Truth rolls on here on the Genesis Communications Network. I'm your host, Tyler Nixon. Our Master of Ceremonies, Roger Stone, after whom the Stone Cold Truth is named, has taken ill. I think Roger's been working it a little too hard, and he's under the weather, let's just say, and it's not pleasant. So I don't blame him for taking care of himself. We all want him healthy and happy. But we do have one of the next best things in the world, a close associate and longtime compadre of Roger Stone, Michael Caputo, who was a Trump campaign aide for a period, I believe, almost to the end of the campaign. Michael, welcome to the Stone Cold Truth.
Thanks a lot for having me on. It's too bad I got to come only when Roger's sick, but I'm happy to.
I think we lost Michael there. Can you hear us?
No, I'm right here.
Oh, okay. Well, let's make a point. Let's get you on more regularly. I'd be down for that. I'm sure Stone would too. I think it's just a matter of getting everything scheduled up right. So. No,
I'm just happy to be here. I'm sorry. I hope he feels better soon.
Sure. Tell us what was your role in the campaign? You know, what was your if you want to give us the quick synopsis so everybody knows where you're coming from.
Well, I met the president many years ago because of my friend, via my friendship for Roger Stone. I've been a friend of Roger's for 30 years. Started out as his driver when I was in my 20s, and so I was my life kind of dodged in and around Donald Trump through the years, and in 2013 I was leading up his exploratory committee for running for governor of New York, and after he decided not to do that and instead ran for president, the president asked me to run his New York State primary. So I joined the campaign in November of 2015, and after we had a pretty good showing in the New York State results, I joined the campaign in Trump Tower as a senior advisor to the candidate, and I guess very late April. And from there, I left the campaign and went to the convention and into the Super PAC world after that.
Outstanding. So let's. I mean, this is kind of a rare opportunity, I think. You know, that you were very close to Mr. Trump, obviously before he became the sensation that he has become in the political world. What is different, if anything, about him behind closed doors, without, of course, revealing confidences or anything like that, but behind closed doors versus what the public image is, what's being portrayed, what the media would have us all believe about Donald Trump? I mean, and I'll just say real quick, my assessment is that the man is far more shrewd than he's given credit for. He may not be an intellectual, so to speak. He may not be part of the, someone who would fit into the intelligentsia, the sort of brainiacs who think they rule the world and don't know what from Shinola. But that being said, what are your thoughts on dealing with President Trump on a personal basis, and maybe what's different about him, if anything, from his media?
I actually don't think he's changed at all from when I used to work closer with him, and from the days when he was merely CEO of the Trump Organization. What's interesting to me is that no matter how much pressure, no matter how much insult and beatings and everything they heap upon Donald Trump, the next day he gets up and he's just as strong as he was the morning before, and he's always had such a strong backbone and an ability to take so much pressure and take so much criticism. But he hasn't changed a bit since back in those days. But what really amazes me is how much he can take. In fact, he looks the same, acts the same, talks the same, and looks as strong as he did every single day in the business world. And yet he's got trillions of dollars of wealth and opposition, arraying against him every morning when he wakes up, that beats on him incessantly, every day, all day long, from all angles, from the right, from the left, from the Republican Party, from the Democratic Party, from the French, from the Germans. It comes from everywhere, and yet every morning he gets up, he puts on his suit, and he comes down, and he's ready to do battle again. I'd say he hasn't changed a bit. What's amazing to me is is my expectations for him are even greater than they were before.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I expected and what I thought. And he's particularly suited for this task at this time and with this environment, I think. He is really... You talked of Ronald Reagan being Teflon, nothing sticks to him. I think Trump is truly Teflon in the sense he's almost like Teflon and Kevlar, meaning it doesn't stick to him. It also doesn't penetrate in the slightest. And I think he shares that with Stone as well. I think Stone is very, in my experience working with him, people savage him and he just keeps going. And it takes a particular grit that he's not given credit for. I thought halfway through the campaign, I thought to myself, my God, this man has the entire establishment world gunning for him, and with using everything they can think of to throw at him, every possible, from the profane insults to the absurd, basically talking heads who just wax on and on with their complete fabricated fairy tales that it continues to this day. And yet he's always managed to just kind of plow forward. It's someone who I always said, like, I think this was back when Roger had first dropped the idea a couple of years ago, to me at least, that Trump might run. I thought he'd be a wrecking ball through the china shop of establishment Washington. And it seems like that's exactly what he is, and he's got the grit and the strength to do it. And we need it in this country, Michael. I'll tell you what. I mean, it's gotten dismal.
Well, Tyler, I think that back in 2013 when we were talking about him running for governor of New York, by the way, Roger was dead set against that, called it the stupidest idea he ever heard. And insisted that if Trump ran and won or lost for governor, it would be a deadly blow to his potential presidency. Roger was working against me every step of that way, let me tell you. Hey, it turned out he was right as well. But, I'll tell you, the idea for me back then, we had just run, actually Roger was very much involved in the governor's race in 2010 in New York, where we ran a flawed but heartfelt candidate for governor in Carl Palladino. A businessman, self-made.
Let me get you to hold that thought, Michael.
Sure.
We're coming up on a short little interlude here with our commercial breaks, but I just wanted to invite everyone to stay with us. Unfortunately, Roger's taken ill, and I'm going to be bringing in also my good friend Doug Beatty, who is he's the son of Ned Beatty, if you know who Ned Beatty is, certainly, and Ned Beatty being a great actor from the 1970s, and Doug is a talent in and of himself, and we've got him lined up on Skype, so we're going to try to work that out and keep the show going a little bit here without the master of ceremonies himself, unfortunately not present. But Michael, are you going to be able to stay with us for another segment?
Sure, no problem.
Okay, and we'll find out what you're up to these days. I'd certainly like to know, and if you stay in touch with anybody within the campaign, it'd be great to know. And you are listening to the Stone Cold Truth here on the Genesis Communications Network. Do not go away.
This is Bill Clinton, and you're about to enter the world of the Stone Cold Truth.
Welcome back to the Stone Cold Truth here on Genesis Communications Network. I am your host, Tyler Nixon. We are actually doing this sans the man himself. Roger has taken ill, and unfortunately we'll be trying to call in maybe later in the show, but he's really, really under the weather, some kind of stomach thing. Mike is... we have also, Michael Caputo, who has known President Trump for 30 years, almost as long as Roger. Through his connection, Michael Caputo's connection with Roger, Michael worked on the Trump campaign and worked closely with our president. and has been sharing a little bit of his experiences on that front. What are you up to these days, Michael? Now, I mean, what do you have you moved into?
I'm back to running my PR firm, Zeppelin Communications, offices in Miami and up here in Buffalo. We're opening a spot in Washington now, and I'm as usual, I'll be doing public affairs and government relations like I always have for the last 30 years, ever since I met Roger.
What's the name of the company again?
Zeppelin Communications.
Zeppelin, no kidding. Wow.
Zepcom.com is where we are on the web. And but I was just saying before, I was reminding me that in the 2010 governor's race, which Roger had a hand in, our candidate, Carl Palladino, had a really rough run of it, but we managed to beat the Republican nominee and run a really kind of grassroots campaign, digging into the kind of silent majority, the monster vote, as we call it, and trying to encourage people who normally didn't vote, people who are kind of outside the mainstream of electoral politics, to get involved and vote in the Republican primary in New York State. And the way that we had managed to do it, which was Roger's recommendation, was to try to harness the anger. Like, in fact, we played at Palladino's announcement the tape from Network, that old great movie, where people were throwing up their window jams and screaming, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it." Our yard sign says, "I'm mad as hell to Carl." While the campaign, we ended up losing to Andrew Cuomo rather handily in general, it was a remarkable campaign in the way that we were able to manage and able to harness the energy of the frustration and the grassroots. And when we were trying to recruit Donald Trump to run in 2014 for governor, we spent a lot of time talking with him about that race and about how angry the voters were and how we managed to bring them into the campaign and get their support and motivate them to come to the polls on primary day. And it was very clear that President Trump was taking a lot of notes and a lot of mental notes on our conversations, and he actually became very close and good friends with Carl Palladino, the candidate in the gubernatorial race in 2010. And as it turns out, Roger and Sam Nunberg and the other early folks who were around Trump, preparing him to run for president while we were working in Trump Tower right next to them, trying to convince him to run for governor. I think the way that we were able to, if you look at when Donald Trump got his trademark on Make America Great Again, it was quite a long time ago. He'd clearly been angling for president for a lot of time. But I think
it was right after the presidential election in 2012, correct?
Right. And I think the 2010 New York governor's race had an impact on him as well. And the lessons that Roger took away from 2010 New York gubernatorial, I think, drove him and Sam Nunberg and their work on the campaign, on preparing Donald Trump for a campaign.
I have to say that you shouldn't feel bad. I'm sure you gave a best efforts in the Palladino campaign and really ran a great campaign. Let's face it, Michael, coming from Delaware, the Northeast Mid-Atlantic is very much lost to the Democrats from Maryland on up. It's kind of nut country in a sense, or it's people are dug in. They're very partisan. They're very clannish with their political parties. It's very hard to penetrate. So I'm sure it's not for lack of running a great campaign that you lost to Andrew Cuomo. Of course, he's an excellent politician as well, and the family name. It was almost a foregone conclusion. But obviously, what came out of that, from what I'm hearing from you, is that the sort of seeds of the Trump presidential campaign a few years later, Roger, obviously, and you picked up on this discontent as a primary campaign theme, which I think most politicians, there was the Tea Party going on, obviously, but it was sort of a different kind of cast. I think when you look at the snowflake brigades out there now, that are burning cars and marching the streets and so forth. The Tea Party was relatively innocuous by comparison. So really, people were angry, but they weren't really taking it to taking it to the streets, or not taking it to the streets, but taking it, I should say, to the media establishment and sort of pushing back and calling them out for what they are. They were trying to act in good faith and say, this is what we want. We want our constitutional rights. We don't want this massive Leviathan national government controlling our lives. We don't want socialism. But I think that was never expressed adequately enough to mobilize people to feel like, hey, this is a clarion. This is someone I can get behind. And I think Trump crystallized that perfectly in 2016.
Well, I'll tell you, from my perspective, how many times in my life running campaigns I've heard people say, yes, but the silent majority is with us. The silent majority is with us. We had heard it for throughout my 30-year career, and the silent majority never shows up, So
Yeah.
we started, those of us in electoral, campaign work started calling it the monster vote 5 or 6, 8 years ago. The monster that's under the bed that never comes out. The monster that's the monster vote never comes out. It had become mythical, kind of like a jackalope or something on that line. And those of us who we never factored it into any of our campaign plans because that's just malpractice. You don't count on that. And when Donald Trump was talking about running for president, when we were trying to talk him into running for governor, he kept referring to the silent majority, the larger group of Americans who have become cynical and don't believe in the effectiveness of their vote at the polls. The monster vote. And so I didn't roll my eyes, or anything like that, but it's factoring in the monster vote into your victory plan seemed to me to be optimistic. And as it turns out, the first person, at least in my memory, perhaps in modern times, to really move the monster vote, the silent majority, out from under the bed in the United States politics was Donald Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an astonishing campaign, and it rolls on. I mean, I think he's not lost, again, the numbers of people he's held, according to polls, 97-8% do not regret voting for him. I don't know that there's any president who, under the barrage that Trump has been facing from the mainstream media, it's unprecedented. My God, Richard Nixon would have just crawled into a hole, frankly. Not that I'm in any way denigrating my distant relative, President Nixon, but he didn't have, I think he really was acutely sensitive to what the media was saying about him and so forth. He couldn't get up and lie without falling apart. Not that it's good to get up and lie with a straight face, as we've seen the last at least 4 presidents do with aplomb, frankly. But the bottom line, though, is that as you said, Trump is a juggernaut, and I don't think that. It's totally fascinating to me to see it unfold, because it's like they just keep coming back to their standard playbook. They don't know how. It's just like a mob that has a sort of a toothless mob that's gathering and amassing and screaming and shouting, but they just can't get any. They can't break through. They can't break through the gate, and thankfully so. Because I think Trump has really built a wall, truly a wall, between the. Between the mainstream media and people's sensibilities about what politics is and what it needs to be. He's created an entirely separate narrative. So you're listening to Stone Cold Truth here on the Genesis Communications Network. Don't go away.
Hi, this is former President Jimmy Carter. Rosalind and I like the Stone Cold Truth because, like me, Roger Stone always tells the truth.
And we are back on the Stone Cold Truth on the Genesis Communications Network. I'm your host, Tyler Nixon. Roger Stone is taken slightly ill. He had gotten ill earlier, late last year, early this year, and I think that there's questions as to what went on with his illness, and I hope he's not going to take as ill as he had been last year, which laid him low for a couple of weeks at least, I believe. Joining us now from Irvine, California, is Travis Irvine. after whom the no, I'm kidding, of course, is Travis Irvine, a stand-up comic and a friend and regular here on the Stone Cold Truth. Travis, welcome.
Tyler, good to be with you. You're doing a great job. Guest hosting and co-hosting as always.
Thanks. Yeah, Roger bailing at the last second to, I believe, actually get to the hospital to get checked out, which I believe he should. Sort of left us in a lurch, but that's fine. I want to throw the lines open to audience calls as well. If you want to call in and share your wisdom with us, share your thoughts on the current state of affairs, Trump administration, all the good stuff that's going on. 877-300-7645. Again, 877-300-7645 to join us here on the Stone Cold Truth. So, Travis, we were going to discuss the release of Get Me Roger Stone, the seminal documentary about Roger that's been 5 years in the making. Have you seen it yet? Travis? I guess we lost Travis there. All right, well, as soon as we get Travis back, Travis is a Mediaite, roving reporter, journalist, and has absolutely been covering a lot of the different angles of the Trump campaign the Trump administration, I should say, from the perspective of media coverage. And he has sort of been trying to, I don't want to use the term ambush, I don't want to put him on the spot like that, but to get interviews with some of the reporters who report on the Trump administration, the reporters who engage in fake news and fabricated stories in malignant, defamatory in many ways reportage. An example, Andrea Mitchell on her morning show I happened to catch on MSNBC just on my way out the door to work. And she had James Clapper on, the inveterate and proven liar and perjurer who, basically lied directly to Congress, to the American public, about the existence of the mass surveillance program. Andrea Mitchell asks Clapper, well, what of these Russian connections with, Roger Stone? And she went through the list of people, and I'm thinking, what Russian connections with Roger Stone? I mean, Roger has flat out denied it. I've known Roger long enough that I know he is not consorting with Russian intelligence agents. Sure, it's laughable beyond belief. And, Stone is right to get up on air and rebut these people and call them what they are: liars, fake newsers, fabricators, and defamers. So it's pretty dismal. But, Travis, are you back with us?
Yeah, I'm back with you, and thanks for touching on that. There was another report that came out this week, and I think I sent you some clips about that as well, Tyler, that Clapper also admitted this week that there is no proof of any collusion between Trump and Russia. And that ties into similar reports this week that came out that showed that the Russia story, the myth, was actually concocted by John Podesta and Robbie Mook within 24 hours of the Clinton campaign losing the historic 2016 election. So, if these reports are indeed verified, that just adds a whole nother layer, like I think you mentioned earlier, of hypocrisy, that the Democrats are actually keeping this entire thing going just as an excuse because they lost. And I believe President Trump tweeted about that along those lines as well.
Yeah, I think anybody who has followed this closely enough knows that the Democrats absolutely have nothing. I mean, let's face it. In this day and age, we don't need, this isn't the Watergate era. This isn't the Iran-Contra era where everything's in writing on paper. They have intercepts of people's conversations. They have all the evidence they're ever going to have, and they haven't produced a damn shred of anything to prove, much less even allude to, Russian collusion or collusion with the Russians, or any of this nonsense, complete nonsense that's been put forward by this screeching, squealing, rapacious, hysterical left who just... they really are the most repugnant, repulsive ilk. I'm sorry to have to characterize other people like that, but they just turn my stomach. They make me sick because they are distorting and defaming and destroying, attempting to destroy just any semblance of it's like they're going to take everything down with them. They can't stand the fact, because I think Trump represents to them the end of their long-standing socialist enterprise that began with Franklin Roosevelt and has continued with this build the national Leviathan and, control the public, bring in socialism. Let's, let the officious ministerial super state control all our lives. And Trump represents the death knell of that in so many ways, as well as the death knell of their ability to control information, to control the narrative, to control what people think, to just, if, as Roger is fond of saying, if they didn't report it in the old days, it never happened. And that's what they can't stand, is that Trump has really come in and smashed all that. And they've gone absolutely mental. And no, I don't think any thinking person believes for a second that they really are concerned, quote, with Russian collusion. And they're so up in arms about, oh my gosh, the Republic is under assault by this. It is such a crock. And I just can't believe that anyone with a brain, half a brain, would believe for a second this nonsense. It's like listening to a mental patient trying to calm themselves down after they've had a manic episode. And unfortunately, this is a mass media phenomenon. It's just, Travis, I don't know, maybe you don't get the revulsion I do, but I've watched this crap since the 1980s when I became politically aware around 84. And they did it to Reagan to a lesser extent, but nobody ever really hit back because you couldn't, because they had their grip. The media, the mainstream sources, the big three networks, they had a grip on information, and dare you cross them, they would destroy you, or worse, just never cover you again.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and look, I'm a young man. I'm a millennial. I was born in 1983, so you were politically active when I was just a baby. But it really makes me sick as a millennial who, again, as of now, I'm still a registered Democrat. I wanted to see the progressives kind of take over the Democratic Party with Bernie Sanders and everything. But how sad is it that we are literally living in a world where you have this myth concocted by Podesta and Mook to basically save their careers, to make up for the fact that they didn't campaign in the Midwest and the Rust Belt the way they should have, to make up for the fact that their campaign was not run well. They wasted tons of money. They had a lousy candidate. Russia didn't make Hillary Clinton collapse on 9/11 in New York on video. No one talks about how bad the optics were with that. So they concocted this whole myth, and now we all have to live with it. We've got our elected officials in Washington, D.C. investigating it. We've got the FBI on it. We've got multiple administration and agency offices working on it. And yes, like you said, the mainstream media has bought it. And it's so strange to me as a journalist, as a millennial, as someone who wants to see the progressives on the left and the libertarians on the right unite on common issues that they have to protect civil liberties, to legalize marijuana, end the drug war, criminal justice reform. We have such a chance to do so much good, even with President Trump in office, whether you agree with him or not. And instead, what are the headlines consumed with? What are our elected officials consumed with? Russia. And that's it. And, it disgusts me as well. Maybe not to the extent of yourself, but, this report, if this report is entirely true, that Podesta and Mook just made this thing up after losing the election, I can't believe that we're living in basically these guys, their mythical world right now.
Well, but does it not have the stench, the stink of the Clintons? This is just like them and their flunkies to come up with this nonsense to totally muddy the waters and put blood in the water, if at all possible, and to completely obfuscate the entire situation. They did it during Bill Clinton's, the investigations into Whitewater, and then the Monica Lewinsky thing. It's just send out your flax, invent a story, fake news, this, that, and the other. And, I wouldn't say that the mainstream media has bought into it. They are it. But, anyway, I'm getting heated up here. Travis, stay with us. We're going to definitely carry this into the next hour. You're listening to the Stone Cold Truth here on the Genesis Communications Network. I'm your host, Tyler Nixon, for today. Roger, unfortunately, is not with us, but we hope you will stay with us. Do not go away.
Roger Stone, New York Times best-selling author, brings you...
I am officially running for President of the United States, and we are going to make our country great again.
That Donald J. Trump has been selected as the Republican Party nominee for President of the United States.
And I promise you that I will not let you down. We will do a great job. We will do a great job. And I can only say that while the campaign is over, our work on this movement is now really just beginning.
The Making of the President 2016. How Donald Trump orchestrated a revolution. Find out more at stonecoldtruth.com. stonecoldtruth.com.
Welcome back to Stone Cold Truth here on the Genesis Communications Network. I'm your host, Tyler Nixon. Roger Stone has taken ill, unfortunately. I think Roger's been burning the candle at both ends. Making America great again is not an easy task. And, of course, he's done his part in that for certain as a confidant of our president, as well as very much an ideological, not ideological, I guess, strategic mentor in a sense. I hate to overstate Roger's involvement with the president, but he has been probably the president's longest time political advisor and sort of he's like a Trump whisperer, I heard one person say. But we have joining us Travis Irvine, a millennial, as he likes to call himself, but also a stand-up comic and a raconteur, working for Mediaite right now. What do you write columns there, Travis?
I just do man on the street videos with basically cable news biggest celebrities from Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, things like that.
Where can we find those, actually? Was there, I guess, Mediaite, but is there a, / Travis Irvine, or, Google you? What's the best way?
Yeah, if you go to Mediaite.com, you just search my name, Travis Irvine, Irvine like California, like you mentioned before. You will find all of those. And, we've got some good ones in there, kind of inserting certainly some voices from the right into the equation. Most of my interviews have been with Fox News stars because they actually are willing to talk to me. Roger Stone talked to me. Gavin McInnes has talked to me. And, unusually enough, I've never really been able to get any CNN or MSNBC news anchors or stars until the White House Correspondents' Dinner. So you can see those videos on there where I finally get to talk to Jake Tapper, Don Lemon, and the elite media, as they call it.
Yeah, but only because you waylaid them, right? Because you sort of ambushed them, right? They wouldn't have agreed otherwise. As I understand, you've gotten sort of a stonewall from the lamestream media.
Yeah, well, the White House Correspondents' Dinner was actually on the red carpet, so they go there to be treated like Hollywood celebrities, and so at that point they love talking to us. But yeah, usually I'm ambushing them outside of where they work, and that's when I'm stonewalled the most, because they just get in their cars and they don't want to talk to me. So
yeah,
typical mainstream media.
And yeah, that says it all. I mean, to me, if you're a reporter, you're a journalist, you're a talking head, and you refuse to answer questions, like, that says it all about what you are, in my opinion. That is like the truly the epitome of hypocrisy. Like, you're going to sit there and grill a Roger Stone or anybody who comes down the pike in terms of President Trump himself. You're going to grill them. You're going to put them on the spot. You're going to put them on the firing line. Act as though you're sort of this neutral arbiter that doesn't have to answer questions about what you do and how you come up with your stories and what your sources are, or anything like that. In terms of, when I don't mean revealing sources, but I'm saying the Russian thing. Where are these people getting their information? Where is this coming from that there is Russian collusion? It's nowhere. It's like this lie on top of lie on top of, like I said, it's very Clintonian is all I can say, Clinton-esque. And absolutely, I would believe, as you said earlier, that Mook and Podesta came up with this line of garbage, and now our entire political landscape is infected with this load of well, I can't say it on the air, but you know what I mean. And that's why Donald Trump is uniquely situated to plow through this and to get things done. And that's what I hope he continues to do, and just says, you know what, I don't care what you say. I'm the president, and I'm going to do this. And if it requires firing people, I'm glad to see that he's also doing that. And one person I'd love to see him fire, although we know it's not going to happen, is this Sessions character. My God, he came out this week, as you I'm sure read, Travis, and maybe some don't know, and basically revived these horrific mandatory minimum sentences. That one thing that decent that came out of at least the Obama administration under Eric Holder was that they had started to have some forbearance on these lengthy, insanely unjust prison sentences that are in the code still. Thank you, Joe Biden, frankly, from the 1980s, and his ilk, Orrin Hatch as well, who's still there. But, the Biden drug war, the Biden mandatory minimums from the 1980s have carried forth and never been changed, no reform, although there have been attempts in the Senate. And Sessions wants to revive these, locking people up for 10, 15, 20 years for possession of and, being involved in the commercial trade of banned substances, prohibited substances. It's good old prohibition laws. So, even back during alcohol prohibition, the country's insanity was not such that people were being given life sentences practically for peddling, prohibited booze. Travis, I know you're a simpatico on this issue, but what's your take on this?
Look, this is an issue where progressives on the left and libertarians on the right agree. Criminal justice reform is absolutely necessary. It's the only way forward. Anyone who has a drug problem or an addiction problem should not be thrown in jail. They should be put into therapy, into essentially rehab. And
if they have a problem, though,
exactly.
I don't concede that everybody who uses any of these licit or illicit substances is a problem. And if they were, right, we'd have the whole society would break down, because there's millions of them out there, folks, whether you want to believe it or not.
Yeah, exactly. Most of these people are completely responsible adult users, and certainly with the marijuana issue. Good Lord, this is going completely backwards. This goes against what candidate Trump campaigned on when he was talking about leaving it up to the states. And Sessions coming out and trying to be all tough on this issue. I get that Trump wanted to be the law and order candidate and the law and order president, but this is just a blast from the past and is not the way forward. It's expensive. If you're a fiscal conservative, good Lord, it takes so much more money to lock all these people up and keep them there for these mandatory minimum sentences than it does to, whether you write them a ticket for responsible use, or if they're an addict, like we mentioned earlier, you get them some rehabilitation. And you absolutely nailed it. Biden put this into place. The Clinton 1994 crime bill, that escalated these sentences certainly more so. So, the way forward, I'm glad Senator Rand Paul, libertarian-leaning senator from Kentucky, has spoken out about this. But on the same note, he voted to confirm Jeff Sessions. And the tough thing with this is that Attorney General Sessions has proved his loyalty to the president. I think Trump is going to keep him around. Sessions was one of the first ones to join the campaign and start campaigning for Trump. And so it's kind of a mixed bag. I'm absolutely with you. I wish Sessions wasn't pursuing this, but at the same time, I don't see him going anywhere, unfortunately.
Interestingly, Rand Paul voted against Jim Comey's confirmation in the Senate.
That's
he was
right.
The only vote. So
the only one, yeah.
Yeah, and I get to some extent that's more of a political calculation on Rand Paul's part, having voted for Sessions. In one sense, I really detest Sessions' mindset and his reactionary belief set, I guess you could say, for what it is, which is that you're willing to inflict injustice, you're willing to inflict harm, specific harm, to reduce supposedly alleged general harm, which is, the drugs are a problem in this country, therefore destroy lives, lock people up, put them in prison for decades for nonviolent offenses, for less than people get for rape and murder in some cases. That is twisted beyond belief. If you support that, I think you really have a screw loose, that someone who's involved in what are acts that, were they not criminalized would be just normal everyday commerce, but are turned into these bad guy criminals and this big. It's completely ridiculous. They've given rise to the cartels as they did to the mafia during alcohol prohibition, and the whole thing is a scam, if you ask me. In the end, but I'm hoping that really what Sessions is correct on, though, is that this is still the law, and it's the responsibility of Congress to fix this. And I'm hoping that what we get is a fix from Congress eventually, because these laws cannot stand and they cannot be sustained. So, Travis, I think we're coming up on our station break here. I really appreciate your joining us here, and we will definitely have you on in the next, if not next weekend, then the coming days of the Stone Cold Truth. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Tyler.
Well, you're listening to Stone Cold Truth here on Genesis Communications Network. Stay with us.
Hi, this is Bernie Sanders. And believe me, I know you may not believe me, but you gotta believe me. In my opinion, I like the Stone Cold Truth, and I listen to it.
Rolling into the afternoon. This is the Stone Cold Truth here on Genesis Communications Network, broadcasting from the Stone Zone. I'm your host for the day, Tyler Nixon. This is Roger, unfortunately, has taken ill and is not going to be with us, I don't think, which is very regrettable. But Roger's been burning the candle at both ends. But joining me, however, is a good friend of mine going years back to my days broadcasting on the East Coast and in Delaware, one of my fellow radio jocks, Doug Beatty. Doug, welcome. It's good to have you with.
Tyler, thank you very much. It's great to be here. And I'm sorry Roger is sick, but I remember him giving me a little afternoon quiet time one day when I was burning the candle at both ends back there. When he came through on his book tour. It was a very interesting show, and I got to not talk for a while. It was beautiful.
Yeah, that was great. That was back in the day. But Doug, why don't you give a little introduction to yourself, like where you're coming from? You got a crazy life story. Obviously, you grew up the son of one of the most famous actors of the 1970s and 80s, certainly the 70s, Ned Beatty, excuse me. But you stand in your own stead as in my opinion, one of the great radio personalities I've ever worked with. And, of course, you come down on the right side of the political equation, too. So tell us a little bit. Give the audience a little taste of Dougie style, I guess you like to call it.
Well, actually, growing up with Ned Beatty was kind of interesting because I grew up with him. Most of the time I spent with him was before he became a famous actor. I was with him when he was a poor actor. And, when he separated from home, visitation we'd go to McDonald's, but we'd eat Yule Gibbons dandelion salad out of the lot next door to McDonald's. And we learned how to catch fish and do stuff like that and read and do plays. Growing up with both parents, and even when they were separated, sometimes I would have to read lines when I was pretty young, so I learned to read fairly young. And then there was a lot of traveling around. I was in 10 schools by the 10th grade, joined the Navy, learned how to ride motorcycles and drink whiskey and shave with a straight razor. Those are 3 important things to do, and also to use guns, but you might not want to do all 4 at the same time is what my dad told me.
Yeah, absolutely. Sound advice from the great Ned Beatty. So
he taught me to do all that.
And you got into activism too. I know you and I have been stood shoulder to shoulder against the complete idiocy of politics, Democrat politics, which is in Delaware. That's all the politics there is, Democrat Party politics, and the nanny state, and the sort of just the idiocy, the complete idiocy is the only word I can use of officialdom when there is one party rule. And what was the war on drugs? I know you got involved in fighting back against a lot of the injustices that went on there. What's your take on Sessions? What Sessions has come out with this week, saying he's going to revive mandatory minimum sentences?
I honestly can't tell if it's a shill move to whip up opposition and raise cash for big political fights, or if he really thinks that's a way to garner his political strength. I think it will hurt him politically. It will be absolutely devastating in the purple states that Trump carried, which have more lenient cannabis policies and are looking more towards reform and re-education with more serious abuse problems, such as those that are terminal to the user, your opiates, say, for instance. I think that those areas, say Michigan, that's going to be very damaging in midterms and beyond.
Yeah, it's a perilous path that they're taking in terms of this, because it's a reversal. I think a lot of people, particularly on marijuana, cannabis, as you said, there's the sense in the country, I believe, that for medical marijuana, the support approaches like 89 to 90%. And I know that it's well over a majority at this point for just the the decriminalization, the legalization. I call it the deprohibition, because
right.
The notion of legalizing something implies that we have to have the government's permission to do anything. That which is not prohibited is permitted, kind of thing. Personally, I think the government obviously should stay out of it. I think the first principle of existence in a free and open society is self-ownership. What you can put in your body is, should be your decision, as long as you're not harming others and you're not, you're not totally dependent on others for your subsistence, unless, of course, you're actually physically disabled or something like that. But just to me, the idea of the government passing constantly these statutes and criminalizing conduct that has no victim, no identifiable victim, except, quote, society, which is fraught with peril in terms of civil liberties and individual rights and the primacy of the individual, which should be the basis for our constitutional republic. And any just system identifies the individual, because, what else is there really? What else is there but the individual? We, the collective, even if you're a collectivist or communist, we're the we that everyone speaks of is made up of individuals, and the sum total of the prosperity of those individuals is what prosperity is. But I don't know what's the latest in Delaware. They just did they pass the recreational marijuana law they were trying to get through there, Doug?
Well, it seems to be on a favorable path coming out of committee, and that's the reporting. We can take that at face value. It looks like it might be going that way, because if you remember, the Republican candidate for governor mentioned support for legalizing recreational cannabis. And you know me and my constant broken record, I want to also know about the industrial hemp. That's very important to me. I'm glad that we're having the cannabis discussion, but I think that as far as jobs, the economy, health, and welfare of the people, I think that we really need to start having some hemp. And I'm not saying anything bad about Canadians. I don't want to offend any Canadians that might be listening, but if we keep on buying our hemp products from the Speedo-wearing, non-tipping folks, French-speaking freaks up north, the Quebecois, my good friends, I don't think that we're really moving America forward. And so I want to see the whole cannabis discussion move forward, including cannabis hemp.
Yeah, that's the sort of little-known downside, I think, of the fact that we've had prohibition in place for as long as we have, is that we've denied the public, we've denied America the access and the ability to use hemp products, largely, without, domestically anyway. And that, to me, is a total insanity. This is how far down we are into this rabbit hole of absurd authoritarianism and attempts to basically control people's minds, because let's face it, these drugs are psychoactive. They're people use them for some psychoactive effect, some sort of therapeutic effect, whatever the case. And the government is saying, no, we will tell you what your mind will be. We will control that. Otherwise, we're going to lock you away for longer than, in many cases, as I said in the earlier segment, what actual violent criminals are sentenced to: rape, murder, robbery, all these things. And as you know, back home, I used to get on the airwaves and say, I'm so glad that all the rapes and robberies and murders and shootings and whatever have all been solved, so we can just spend tons of money chasing down people who want to have a little bit of recreational high or some sort of release or relief. It's the nature of humanity. Since the first time you could ferment, or since the first time that humans discovered, fermentation and discovered alcohol and exotic plants and things that had psychoactive effects, mankind has sought to, in some way, have an altered perception, an altered reality, an expansion of your mind. And I just think it's demented, and it's beyond belief that our government would release armies of thugs to try to stop this. So, well, I'll tell you, we're gonna hold you over. We're actually coming up. We have Dylan Bank, who is one of the directors of Get Me Roger Stone, the great documentary that's come out and is on Netflix this week. You're listening to Stone Cold Truth here on Genesis Communications Network. I'm your host, Tyler Nixon. Don't go away. Well, we're back live here on the Genesis Communications Network. This is the Stone Cold Truth. I'm your host, Tyler Nixon. Joining us now, we have the two esteemed directors of Get Me Roger Stone, the exciting new documentary out on Netflix just a couple nights ago, I believe the release was. We have Morgan Pehme and Dylan Bank. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. All right, I guess we don't have them. This has been a tough show, folks. I hope for those of you who are still listening, have stayed with us. We do appreciate it. It's really been a challenge today to get everything coordinated. So I think we do now have Morgan and Dylan. Gentlemen, can you hear me? Okay, great. Is this Morgan or Dylan?
This is Dylan. Dylan.
Well, so this is exciting stuff. I think this has been 5 years in the making. You've been doing the whole the media circuit. What's the response you're getting to the documentary?
Well, one of the things that is really pleasing us most is that we're getting a great response from both sides of the aisle, because we always set out to make a very journalistic look at Roger, which would be warts and all. And I'm really happy to hear that we're getting a great response in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I can say, having known Roger as long as I have, he's nothing if not entertaining, for sure. So you got to follow him around for 5 years. I'm sure it was on and off. But what are some of the more wild stories out there? You know, without getting too crazy, but does anything stick out in your mind that Roger, you saw him do, or that maybe was caught that didn't make it into the documentary?
One of the very first things we filmed Roger doing was whipping up a fake protest that hacked into the Occupy Wall Street vibe. It was actually a battle between two banks. It was this very complicated thing he'd been hired to do to stop one bank from moving to another place for some, reasons that would make them lose money. And he bragged to us that normally back in the day he would have had to go to a bus station and round up a bunch of bums and pay them with beer to do it. But these days he's got Craigslist. So he stayed at home, and where I was filming him, and one of my co-directors, Dan DeMauro, was in New Jersey with him, and filming the actual protest with Andrew Miller, one of his proteges, running it. Sure. As far as everyone was concerned, it looked like a real Occupy Wall Street protest. And we asked Andrew Miller, did these people really know what they were doing? And Andrew Miller smiled and said, oh, some of them knew, some of them really believed, and some of them were tricked.
You sound just like Andrew saying that, too. Andrew's a good friend of mine, so that's yeah, and I can see that grin he's got, too, that sort of impish grin that Miller has. But so you must have had a lot of fun doing this. I mean, you traveled around. I mean, I imagine, what was, how did you figure out your filming schedule? Like, were there lulls, I imagine, where, the politics weren't heating up or weren't heated up, so to speak? How did you figure out what to, when was enough? And I guess, when did you decide to go and do filming?
Well, we say we've been filming it for 5.5 years. That, of course, does not mean 5 days a week, 9 to 5. We were filming it. When Roger would be in New York, he satellites between New York and Florida. We did visit him in Florida, but most of the time we filmed him in New York. So we would film him in his apartment, and we got to know all of his Barry Goldwater posters in his apartment very well. And, Roger has the unique ability of making it fun, even when he's saying something that makes you want to tear your hair out if you're a liberal, like us filmmakers who are doing it. And that's in many ways the contradiction of Roger Stone that drew us to this film.
Yeah, one thing I can concur with is Roger gets a bad rap. He's considered the dark art master of politics, the dirty trickster. But Roger's a very funny and human guy, and he's great fun to hang out with. I think he's very down to earth. Maybe your experience is different, but I found he's very accessible, and he's very transparent in a sense that he doesn't put on airs. He does not elevate himself. I think his credibility is deserved in terms of, look, he was the closest advisor to the man who was elected president against all odds. So certainly that was, that was no small feat. But I imagine last year's filming schedule got really crazy. Was there any moment, probably the Republican National Convention perhaps, any moment where things got really, just the wildest moment that you had been involved with Roger?
Well, at the RNC, certainly, that is a fantastic contender for the wildest moment when Roger would hold his Bill Clinton rape rallies, and he would have his shirt emblazoned with the Hope and Change style image of Bill Clinton's face with the word rape written at the bottom. And, you know, there'd be 7-year-old girls holding his book, chanting, you know, lock her up. And it really was a demonstration of just the frenzy that Roger had whipped the electorate into based off of one of Stone's main rules, which is hate is a more powerful motivator than love. And that was really what we got to witness Roger doing in his ground game, which was while he, if you ever speak to him, he's extremely positive about Donald Trump. He'll never say a bad word about him, especially on camera. But he really was in the field not drumming up love for Trump. He was there drumming up hate for Hillary Clinton. And that was what we got to witness in full bloom at the RNC, where it was packed with true believers who were already believing beforehand and just more than happy to dive into the speech and buy his book, of course.
Yeah, well, let me ask you, are you guys like a production company, or in other words, the directors, do you always work together, and do you have anything interesting coming out or anything in the works that we should know about?
Well, the three of us were kind of like a 3-person show for 4 of these 5 years, because Roger was in many ways at the low point of his career when we first started filming him. He was, you know, a dirty trickster from the Nixon era, from the 80s era, who had all these incredible stories and all these amazing schemes that he was working on that we were filming. But, you know, he got so close many times, so nothing quite came together. And the whole time, one of the schemes that he was telling us about was running Donald Trump for president. And it was certainly not one of the ones that we took the most seriously. But once that happened, then Netflix became involved because we had hot property. Suddenly, the story of Roger Stone collided with the biggest story in the entire world. And all of those, you know, backroom stories with a martini in his hand and a cigar in the other hand that he was telling suddenly became much more relevant because the effects of them absolutely directly resulted in the election of Donald Trump, not just his actions on the campaign trail, but his actions in the 80s and in the 90s, just creating the atmosphere of politics that in many ways Donald Trump rebelled against. So we were the 3-person show doing that, and we had actually worked together before, the 3 of us, on 2 other horror movies. So as you see, we like dark characters.
Well, okay, what horror movies, just so we can go run to Netflix or wherever and check those out?
The first film that Morgan Pehme, one of my co-directors, and I worked on is called Nightmare, and IFC released that film in 2009. And Dan DeMauro joined us and worked with us on another movie called Nothing Sacred, which came out a few years later. And I've also worked on several other films that I did not work on with these guys. One of them is called Scavenger Killers, which is an over-the-top horror film with Robert Loggia and Eric Roberts in it. And Dustin Diamond from Saved by the Bell also.
You got to work with Robert
it was actually,
Loggia?
I had the great pleasure of working with him very shortly before he died. It was the second to last film that he worked on, and he was absolute pleasure to work with. We killed him and cut out his brain on camera. So he was a great sport. He loved it.
Okay, so this is pretty graphic stuff you're saying. So, all right. Well listen.
If you can handle the Roger Stone film, though, you might be able to handle Scavenger Killers. So,
Dylan Bank, folks, director of one of the directors of Get Me Roger Stone, which you must check out on Netflix today. Do not delay. Thanks for joining us, Dylan. Really appreciate it. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Good. Well, you are listening to the Stone Cold Truth here on the Genesis Communications Network. I'm your host, Tyler Nixon, standing in for the taken ill Roger Stone. We got one more segment. Jack Posobiec is with us. Don't go away.
Hi, this is former President Jimmy Carter. Rosalind and I like the Stone Cold Truth because, like me, Roger Stone always tells the truth.
Yes, Roger Stone tells the Stone Cold Truth, which is what you are listening to right now here on the Genesis Communications Network. Roger, unfortunately, has taken ill, and it's been tough not replacing. There's no replacement for Roger Stone, but it has been a little bit challenging today, keeping everything going for your listening pleasure. Joining us, an up-and-coming media star and journalist, Jack Posobiec. Jack, welcome to the Stone Cold Truth.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, listen, I got to apologize for our little mix-up there. It's been we kind of got a little backlog and clustered up a few guests, but I'm really glad you could join us, and we'll certainly be looking forward to having you on again in the future. So, just tell us a little bit for those who don't know, what your background is. What's how'd you get involved in politics, and what do you do now?
Yeah, sure. So right now I'm currently the Washington bureau chief for Rebel Media. I just spent my first week in the White House at the White House press corps, and we can talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, sure.
Sort of my background, I've worked on 4 different presidential campaigns and other campaigns for Republicans, and I spent about 5 years in the U.S. Navy, both as enlisted and officer, with multiple overseas deployments.
Wow. Well, it's funny because my sort of erstwhile or current co-host I have on here on the other end of the line, Doug Beatty, is also a Navy veteran. Doug, you served as well, right? I guess we lost Doug. So, Jack, you had an amazing, Twitter explosion this week with regard to the French presidential election. I was fascinated by that. You created a hashtag and it just went viral. What's the deal there? What happened?
Yeah, so I created the hashtag Macron Leaks in reference to Emmanuel Macron, who was running, and I guess he's the current, or I guess he will be inaugurated as president of France. And there was a huge treasure trove of archived emails and photos and documents of his, which leaked onto the website 4chan, specifically the board poll, where a lot of interesting reporting, interesting information does tend to get leaked these days. And I'd heard, there were some messages, some chatter on there that, hey, something big is coming with the French election. So I literally just sat there, hitting refresh for like 12 hours straight. And boom, the minute I saw it, we took a look at the documents. I passed them over to a few people to verify it, and they came back and said, yeah, this is legitimate. So went right to Twitter with it and said, you guys got to check this out. And it's funny, I actually went and left Twitter for a while after that, went to Milo's party with Roger, believe it or not, down in Miami.
Right.
And then later on at the party, someone came up to me, have you seen this thing Posobiec put out? I was like, no, what's Posobiec talking about? What's he doing? And realized that it had gone worldwide at that point.
Yeah, that's got to be after sitting 12 hours hitting refresh, and I've certainly been there for concert tickets anyway, but not for WikiLeaks or any kind of leaks.
Felt like that.
Yeah, well, so there is. I was wondering, it's like this guy. You made it seem so easy. I figured, he just kind of had a little thread he grabbed onto and ran with it. But no, it's good to know there's work behind it. So you certainly deserve the acclaim for it. How long does that? I mean, obviously it's here and gone, but what do you? This week we have the Comey resignation. Firing, the righteous firing of that guy, and where do you go? How do you sort of develop what news stories or different topics you want to cover? Like, just generally speaking, how do you develop?
Well, there's 2 tools I use. I mean, one, definitely I use sources and connections that I've made through my years working in the Navy. I did spend time in Navy intelligence, so those intelligence community contacts that definitely fan out throughout the government. But then also having Twitter, having that base of so many followers and so many people, you'll get people all the time that say, hey, I've got a story, hey, I've got something for you, you should cover this. And, if someone sends me something that's fairly salacious or fairly interesting, typically you'll have users on there that, they might be an anonymous account, but you don't know who they actually are in real life. And some of them actually are FBI agents, people in different parts of the government, people in different sectors of the government, or even the administration. And they're willing to reach out because they've seen the fact that we're doing real journalism and the fact that we're not going to put this conspiratorial spin on it like the mainstream media would. We're going to report what's going on. And so they're willing to give us this information.
Boy, isn't that irony that the mainstream media, as you call it, they're the conspiracists, so to speak, now, that they're the ones coming up with all the conspiracy theories.
Everything's a conspiracy with them. I sit in the press room all all week this week, and it's when did Trump decide to fire? Why didn't Trump fire Comey originally? Was it based on this recommendation, or did he do it himself? I'm like, God, he fired him. Like, what are you trying to point out here? Like, what are you getting at?
It's amazing to me. It's like they ignore real conspiracies that occur, in our history. Let's just say, and as you know, Roger Stone wrote "The Man Who Killed Kennedy," the case against LBJ. I'm personally been studying that and a scholar of that event in our history for many years since I was young. And
I devoured that book by Roger. I probably read the entire thing in less than 24 hours.
Yeah, no, it's gripping. I mean, and when you look at Johnson, you think, like, look at the veneer that they put on him in history. Lyndon Johnson, the man was an amoral psychopath. I mean, Donald Trump looks like a priest, a Jesuit priest, compared to Lyndon Johnson. Yet you will not hear that in the mainstream media, who revere a leftist demagogue and tyrant like Lyndon Johnson because he fits their ideology.
Yeah, he says all the right things to them. He plays the game of essentially sucking up to get the press coverage he wants, and they completely overlooked the fact that he said extremely racist things. He put out policies that he knew would be detrimental to the black families in black America, and he essentially ran the White House like a megalomaniac for so many years, but it's all covered up because, well, he's Johnson and he's one of ours. I actually went on MSNBC with Joy
Behar?
Not Joy Behar. What's her name? AM Joy. Joy Reid.
Okay.
And she had me on in a panel, and it was kind of before my name had really been out there. She didn't know who I was. And I started talking about how Johnson was against the Civil Rights Act. And she's like, that's not true. That's not true. But yes, it is, Joy. He was totally against it for so many years.
Oh, yeah. Very cynical. Well, having the last name Nixon, I've had to live with this. I was a young kid in the 80s to get interested in politics, and even in the Republican Party. Oh, you better change your name. And I'm like, God almighty. And I look back and think Nixon was a piker compared to Lyndon Johnson. But I don't want to get derailed onto Lyndon Johnson. I think there's interesting enough events happening currently. But I mean, the point was.
Well, and just bring it back from Nixon is the media is trying to paint what Trump did this week to Comey and say, oh, he's Nixon now, and then
exactly.
Firing Comey, and then Trump goes in and tweaks him a little bit by bringing Henry Kissinger into the office, unannounced.
Yeah. Trump is a genius. I mean, I don't know if it's almost savant level in terms of how he is able to just tweak, just grab their nose, you know what I mean? Just sort of pluck their nose and have them freak out, absolute head exploding freakouts all over, up and down. And it's just exposing them. He is really almost like the revealer. He is letting them reveal themselves by how they react to him, and it's genius. And I think it's really a seminal presidency in the life of this republic. And I hope at the end of it, we have the fake news, the mainstream media have been beaten back to where they belong, which is relegated to just hagiographers for their ideological darlings on the left, and that's it, and taken no more seriously than that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the role that I see with myself as being part of the White House press corps now, is that, I'm in there and I'm reporting on the press briefing and I'm reporting on what, Sean Spicer may have to say that day, or Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who filled in for 2 days this week, or anyone else. H.R. McMaster gave us a briefing. But what I'm also doing is I'm reporting on the people around me, and they do not like that. I'm taking pictures of them with their notes and their computer screens up. I'm telling you what they're talking about, and they hate it. They say, you're not supposed to film here. Don't take that picture.
Right.
And
yeah.
I mean, big names that you would know have come up to me. You're not welcome here. That seat's not for you. You shouldn't be here. All that stuff.
Jack, is that not the height of hypocrisy, which I touched on with Travis Irvine earlier, who does media interviews, attempts to interview, CNN luminaries, whatever you want to call them, that these people don't want to be themselves reported on or questioned or in any way exposed? I mean, this is your job, supposedly, their jobs, in other words, and they certainly relish exposing and making stuff up, frankly, anything they can, yet they don't want to be scrutinized. It's just, it amazes me that they're so unself-aware, I guess would be the word, to make up a word there.
Yeah, that's just it too. And I actually turned to my producer after the one thing, and I said, we're staying in a room full of cameras, but these people, they're all so coddled, and they're all so used to being the ones sort of firing ammunition at other people. And I've been so nice. I've been so polite to everyone. I haven't said anything negative, anything insulting or offensive. You know, I'm like, hey, I have to work with these people every day. I'm not trying to, you know, go in there and pick fights. But I'm
sorry to interrupt you, man. We're coming to the end of the show here, but you know what? This is Jack Posobiec. We're going to have you on again, my friend. That's been a great interview. We appreciate you joining us.